Newly recovered evidence from the plane's black boxes could help the NTSB answer questions about what led to that deadly plane crash in Virginia. As we learn, the Black Hawk helicopter crew's training mission was in case of a Capitol attack. It is day 2 of a search and recovery operation on the Potomac River. All 67 people are presumed dead, and at least 40 bodies of the victims have been recovered. We are also learning more about the victims. 14 members of the U.S. figure skating community were on board the passenger plane as athletes and coaches returned home from a national development camp in Wichita, Kansas. And we're hearing pushback to criticism from President Trump against air traffic controllers. A union leader for the group told CBS Mornings he stood behind every highly skilled, highly trained air traffic controller that is out there. That was a quote. He did say there is an ongoing controller shortage across the U.S., with 10,800 controllers doing the job where there should be about 14,300 people. CBS News has learned the same air traffic control worker managing helicopter traffic was also handling some planes taking off and landing around the time the collision happened, a job usually handled by 2 different people. CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cortez is at the White House with a reaction from the Trump administration. Nancy, what is the administration saying about the crash today?
Well, they are continuing to insist that DEI programs, diversity, equity, inclusion programs, may have played some sort of role here, even as the Secretary of Defense acknowledges that we are still missing some pretty basic details. For example, which pilot was in control of the Black Hawk helicopter when it crashed. He said that the helicopter's black box is going to need to be examined to determine that. And so despite the fact that there are a lot of facts out there that have to be run down, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just held a briefing in which she insisted that the standards at the FAA had been lowered during the Biden administration and that President Trump was hiking them again. We've spoken to former Department of Transportation officials under President Biden. They said they're not sure which standards this White House has been referring to. They said that safety was a major focus for the former Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg. But nevertheless, that is what this White House is continuing to argue, backing up the surprising comments that President Trump made yesterday, so shortly after this crash had taken place the night before, in which he argued that this must have something to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
The White House also made a major announcement about tariffs. What are President Trump's plans to enact tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico starting tomorrow?
Right. So the White House press secretary in this briefing also announced that come tomorrow, President Trump will, in fact, be imposing 25% tariffs on both Canada and Mexico and 10% tariffs on China. There had been some thought that perhaps this could be headed off as negotiations between these countries continued. They are such close trading partners, but she said no, because of all the Americans who have died due to fentanyl crossing illegally into the U.S. across those borders. President Trump has decided to announce those tariffs, put them in stone tomorrow. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Americans who are concerned about increased prices should look at what President Trump did in his first term. He effectively implemented tariffs, and the average inflation rate during the first Trump administration was 1.9%. In fact, when President Trump left office, it was 1.4%. So President Trump is going to do everything he possibly can to cut the inflation crisis that the previous administration imposed on the American people, and he will continue to effectively utilize tariffs.
So the White House press secretary shrugging off concerns that have been voiced by some business leaders and by economists about the fact that placing tariffs on Canada and Mexico will hike prices for Americans. She said that it didn't end up being the case in President Trump's first term. But of course, Lindsay, those tariffs that he imposed were much smaller than what we're about to see take place tomorrow.
I have to be quick with you on this, but CBS News has also learned senior officials at the FBI are being told to resign or be fired. What can you tell us?
Well, that would be in line with what we've seen across the administration, Lindsay. In fact, there was an official at the USAID who was placed on administrative leave, he said, because he refused to fire some individuals that new political appointees wanted fired. So we're seeing this kind of tension play out in almost every single agency across the federal government.
Nancy Cortez, thank you.